from day one, that fire was there.
And Shirley wins it.
It was personal. No one was going to stop me.
It really is against the male ego, for sure. I mean, this sport was invented by men.
There seems to be a lot of sour grapes as far as the boys are concerned. I love beating them. That is the reason I'm staying in it.
We designed it, we invented it, and now here comes a gal, and she's beating us at our own game. It's a hard pill to swallow.
Winning says it all. I started to win, and then I went for the paybacks. And boy, did they have it coming.
Shirley Muldowney is the world champion.
She won the world championship 3 times.
She was a rock star.
She did put up with an awful lot.
She had fans that would come up and spit in her face.
And she knocked that sucker right out.
I don't know a girl that was out there that could have put up with what I put up with. I had a lot of faith in myself to know, I wasn't going to lose. That was why I was out there. And I wouldn't trade those years for anything.
This was the only woman competing against all men.
Shirley Muldowney was Shirley Muldowney. She didn't have anybody on her side.
You can't compare Shirley to anybody.
She's not just a woman who drove a race car. She's a race car driver who is a woman.
None of us, including myself, ever had any idea what this was going to turn into. I cannot believe it's been about 63 years since I've been here. I cannot believe that we did this. But you're talking about dangerous? Really dangerous. We never thought about that back then. It was the furthest thing from our mind. I was a kid, 15 years old, chasing the streets of Schenectady, trying to stay away from my father who was out looking for me in his pickup truck. Where is she tonight? I moved into this building with my mother and my sister. My father was, God knows where he was. He drove a taxi. It wasn't pretty. He was trouble. He was 6'3", 280. He was a big guy, and he had a temper. He spent some time convincing the judge that he wasn't going to punch a cop again, and things like that. I kind of had some of his traits. He taught me to not run from a fight. He taught me well. He taught me how to open a combination lock without knowing the combination. Yeah, he was a dandy. But then the other side was this guy that could play the most beautiful fiddle you ever heard without knowing a note of music. Deep down, we loved him, but we were afraid of him. But if he had to defend me and take my side, he was the first one to do that. My mother worked at a laundry right down the street. My mom was not happy with me. That seemed to be the case most of the time. I was not out of control. You had to give me a little more attention and find out where I was. I would spend my summers up on my uncle's dairy farm, which turned out to be some of the happiest years of my life. And once I got older, my aunt didn't think that was the best place for me. So I stayed in upstate New York, in Schenectady, during my summer months, and all I did was make my mother unhappy. Riding around in hot rod cars, skipping school. I did everything that I wanted to do. And both of my parents were working, and they had no idea what I was involved in. I was in my junior year in high school, and I used to watch this guy drive his hot rod. I said, oh, he's kind of cute, I like that car, that sort of thing. And I got to meet Jack Muldowney. Jack was a nice guy. He really was a nice guy. He came from the nice part of town, but unfortunately lived in the worst house on the block. Jack taught me how to drive, and we started street racing. I went to work in a car hop type restaurant, and he would come and give me a ride home. Instead of going home, we would go looking for drag races up and down State Street, running from the police, running red lights when we could get away with it, and just doing stuff that was stupid and dangerous. I married him when I was 16 years old. He was 19. And drag racing was our only form of enjoyment. It wasn't a hobby, it was what we did and what we wanted to do. We decided that we were going to go check out this 8th Mile drag strip. I liked Fonda. And this will make a man out of you.
For somebody like that to come into the local track, the early going wasn't easy. And I'd seen her name keep popping up, women racer, wins at the race. And I kind of tucked away in the back of my head that I'm just going to keep tabs on her as I read my stories and see if she ever amounts to anything.
We would go to Fonda every Wednesday night and race our streetcar that I drove to work the next day. And there were times I couldn't get there. My father used to come and tow me home. The competition, they hated me here. We'd catch them trying to let air out of our tires and, shenanigans like that. I had to be someone that could stand their ground.
She faced probably the most and biggest obstacles out of any drag racer in the history of motorsports.
She did it in a time when it wasn't okay for women to do what men do in the same arena, toe to toe, head to head.
They used to throw soda cans at me with soda in them.
She had to be very hard on the outside, just in case you're going to try something to hurt her. She was already ready to fight that battle.
I drove the race car, and Jack Muldowney, he tuned the car that beat the boys. That was his motto. They didn't like him either. We'd bring our son John, who in the beginning was in diapers, and then he kind of grew up at Fonda. And all of a sudden, he's helping Dad work on the car. They gave me the year-end trophy one year. That sucker stood this high. It was really something to see. And then after they took the pictures and all the cheering and all the hoopla was over, they took the trophy back. And I think they gave it to the NASCAR guys on Saturday night. But they gave me a trophy and turned around an hour later and took it back. It was pretty for the picture. And that's when it all started. In 1965, Jack Muldowney built me the little B-gas dragster. I broke the national record for B-gas dragster when I took the driver's test in Connecticut Dragway. Darwin Dahl, who was the Division I NHRA director for the East Coast, he issued the license. I come back, go to work, and I get this letter from Wally Parks telling me that the license is void. We're not going to honor it, not going to run NHRA.
NHRA encouraged women racers, but of course they'd like them to run the powder puff derbies and, run the lower classes. It was infinitely rare for somebody in the classes that she was racing.
Wally thought if a woman gets hurt in one of these cars, especially burned real bad, it'll be such bad publicity for NHRA, it isn't worth to take the chance.
But, he was in California, I was in Schenectady. They catered to all their California boys, not the Schenectady girls. Well, I threw a fit. I worked for a newspaper in Albany, and they jumped on it. I get a call from NHRA. It was maybe a week or two later, and telling me that it was okay. I was welcome to run, local events, and that was basically it. I sent in an entry for Englishtown, national event, Englishtown, and they denied it. And I still have the letter telling me that I never did anything in the sport that allows me to be part of such a prestigious race as the Summer Nationals at Englishtown. And I fought them and begged until one time I happened to call after hours, and a guy named Steve Evans picked up the phone.
Steve Evans was a promoter interested in putting people into the seats, and he knew the fact that having this attractive young woman racing at a relatively high level to bring her to his track was going to sell tickets.
They did accept the entry. I went down, I missed by a couple 100ths, didn't qualify, but it was still, I had established that I had some sort of a agreement with the NHRA. I had 3 or 4 years in gas dragster, but it was novel. And it wasn't getting me what I wanted, which was basically wins and attention. I sold the AA gas dragster, the one car I wish I had today, and I bought a used funny car from a guy named Connie Coletta. I didn't know any better then. He was part of the Detroit gang, and I was a little girl from the East. We went to Indy, the first time I had ever gone to Indy, and I was sitting in the Goodyear tent, and down comes Coletta, and he's rolling. 2 slicks, one on one hand, he's rolling these 2 tires out. These are big 18-inch tires. And I took a look, I said, this is too much, and he just gravitated right over to where I was, and he decided that I needed to know someone, or I needed to do something. I forget what it was, what excuse he gave for me to get on the back of his motorcycle, with his motorbike with him. And from there, we became friends.
He was a big-time star. I think the fact that somebody like Connie Coletta would start to mentor somebody like her had to get NHRA's attention, and eventually they realized that it was just, no matter how many barriers they put up, inevitable that this was going to happen.
I got the funny car license, and we went out and we made some noise. This was big time compared to where I had been for so many years. I loved racing here. Yeah, status, symbol, win the rock, sure. Every racer liked to come to Rockingham.
This is where the funny cars were pitted, and Shirley Muldowney was pitted right here. And I remember walking up, and this crowd was around her, and I see this foxy little 110-pound brunette. Felt like a novelty more than anything else, that a female driving a nitro funny car at the time.
To me, it wasn't a novelty. Some people thought it was. I was the first woman to win a funny car event. Because it wasn't an NHRA national event, that meant it didn't count. Well, it did count, because I drove my ass off that day. After 1 year, Jack had it. Jack, he just didn't want to tour. I was not going to lose what little opportunity I had.
If anybody had doubted her tenacity towards this, she didn't want to just race. She didn't want to just compete. She wanted to win.
Connie respected Jack for what Jack did with the fuel car. He's no dummy. And Jack was equally as thankful to Connie for what Connie shared with him. Aside from, the deal that I was then with Connie, that kind of happened, went along and developed, and Jack kind of fell by the wayside. I think Jack got a raw deal. I wanted a change in my life. Came back from Detroit City, and I rented a U-Haul truck, and I hit the New York State Thruway and didn't look back, just wondered, I hope I'm not homeless.
Woman, wife, mother, pack up, go out. I mean, they do Lifetime TV shows about stuff like that now, They don't all end happily.
Sunday this weekend. Are women better race drivers than men? Right in the middle of the fight, the one they call Cha-Cha.
How'd the name Cha-Cha emerge?
Someone wrote it on my race car a long time ago as a joke in shoe polish, and it stuck, Chris.
We went to Sanford, Maine, and the tech people putting class numbers on windows with shoe polish. When it was my turn, here I come up with the big dark hair and the always gold earrings. And for some reason, I think he thought I might have been Hispanic or something. I don't know that I filled but he said, Cha-Cha. And he wrote it with the shoe polish on the window of the car. And Tommy Ivo said, keep the name and paint it pink. Only because nicknames were synonymous with the sport.
It exacerbated the irritation from the racers. Not only were they getting beat by somebody named Shirley, they're getting their butt kicked by somebody named Cha-Cha. And that was horrible.
It doesn't bother me one bit. Every place I go, sometimes people only know that name.
You get on an airplane and start chatting with somebody, what do you do for a living? They know Big Daddy, Snake, and Cha-Cha. They didn't know anything about the sport, but they knew those names.
It's the match race of the decade, the Beauty and the Beast.
A big part of her whole racing was match racing, because back in those times, there was only a few national events.
And they were very dangerous, because she raced on some very marginal racetracks, and I doubt if you haven't even had an ambulance. But the money was so good, you had to do this, so you could do this over here.
Promoters would call his garage, because they knew I was coupled up with Connie. He would say, yeah, she's open that weekend. You book her, you gotta book me. was no dummy. That's exactly what he was doing. He was making his bed that he was going to sleep in. And it worked out okay because it kept him in the sport.
When they had the bounty hunter and the bounty huntress, and they would go out, and sometimes they would race Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, go from town to town, just like if you were a rock star.
But it wasn't an NHRA national event. Until I did that, they're going to think, well, let's not think about the problem, and it's going to go away. Well, it didn't. And by the time they hated my guts, I had won my first world championship.
Shirley Cha-Cha Muldowney, fourth fastest qualifier in the funny car class, was making her second run in the championship finals when a connecting rod broke midway through the run. It was the third fire crash of her career.
Those were still years that I was learning. Aren't you afraid? No.
When the engine would explode, it was like driving through a hand grenade explosion. I mean, it blew up right in your face.
She was nearly burned to death at Dragway 42 in her funny car.
And I'm still shocked how she survived it and went through all of that. That fire was terrible.
Everybody thought she'd quit, and she didn't.
Thinking back, in terms of other women getting into the sport, it would have stopped progress for how long? Who knows? I had a damned toaster at Indy in '73. Ugly. Ooh. It was awful. I got tired of being lit on fire. I did the upgrade for Top Fuel. Somehow I knew that I had what it took. It was a class that, that interested me because it was the quickest and fastest race car in the world. It set you on top.
I signed the license, and Connie Coletta and Tommy Ivo signed it. We were all at the track that day.
Tommy Ivo, he knew that I was the real thing. Connie Coletta was in love, obviously. All we had to worry about was the Big Daddy Don Garlits.
See, I was the guy that didn't have to sign it if I didn't want to.
I would like to think that he's signing it like this.
They didn't mind so much a woman driving a car, Coletta and Ivo, as they were going to have to face all these guys that didn't want women driving the cars. I saw so many guys say they were going to come into drag racing and do all these wonderful things, and they didn't do it.
I think Garlits didn't think it was going to go anywhere.
This is a tongue-in-cheek. I said, you don't have to worry about it. She ain't never going to amount to nothing.
She wasn't going to take any crap from anybody. She would get nose to nose with them and not have a problem with it.
She was working on her car in the pits, and when the guys made that nasty remark to her, she just came right up under it with an uppercut and knocked that sucker right out. I don't think it ever became okay in some of the guys' minds. I mean, Richard Tharp is a good example. He said, if you ever outrun me, I'm driving right off the end of the drag strip. That's what he told her. And then she outran him, and I said, Tharp, I didn't see you drive off the end of the drag strip. And he always held that against me every time I saw him. You're the one signed that license.
Drag racing's a very macho sport. They had to face the reality that she was better than them.
Once I knew that I was qualified for Top Fuel, I had made the grade. I had actually done everything I wanted to do. Now there's only one thing left, Shirley: win a race.
For the second year in a row, the only woman licensed to drive a Top Fuel dragster is in the finals of the Spring Nationals.
In '76, I won my first NHRA national event.
And Shirley Muldowney becomes the first woman in history to win Top Fuel Eliminator.
She wasn't the star in the funny car that she became in the Top Fuel car. That was her special breed of car.
What do you think about going against the gal? Well, I owe her one from Columbus.
No. He owes me 3 because I got him after Columbus, too.
Shirley's and Garlits was not a media play. That was a dogfight. So the fans would go nuts.
Different ball game. Completely different thing. Different feel in the grandstands. Different feel from the announcing standpoint of view. Different point of view from the press. I mean, everybody wanted to see, Garlits and Muldowney run at some time during the day.
She liked to beat me more than anybody else.
It was a true rivalry. He hated me, I hated him.
We had some violent words at times at these races. She was a killer back then, and you couldn't get along with her.
I watched her go nose to nose with Don Garlits. Like two men at it. She was afraid of nobody.
Getting beat by a woman. This is Big Daddy Don Garlits. There's a girl beating him?
He was the king. He was the Richard Petty of drag racing. He was the guy that you had to beat in order to become somebody.
They literally had this animosity because each of them had something that was trying to take away. I mean, if you're trying to take away my livelihood, I'm not going to like you. I'm not going to have good feelings for you.
We kept a score on my trailer for years and years, you know, and at the end it was about 50-50. I mean, she'd be ahead of me sometimes, and I'd be ahead of her. The last time we raced, I outran her, and that's the only race we count.
I would have never, in my wildest imagination, ever thought that I would like him as much as I do today. It was ugly back then.
When she started challenging him, that's when she really exploded onto the scene.
Would you welcome, please, Shirley Muldowney?
A dream come true for a publicist.
Go!
Because of her, we got these great features from national news, national media, and
It was synonymous with Tiger Woods showing up in the PGA. It really, really elevated not just Shirley as a brand and as a person, but the sport of drag racing.
I just, was able to deliver a lot of things to the sport that they couldn't produce, even with Don Garlits and Don Perdome.
Shirley Muldowney knows that her world championship stake lies in this race. If Baca wins, she's the world champion. It's close. And it's Baca.
Hi,
Congratulations, Shirley. It broke your way.
Thank you, Chris.
Pleased?
Happy as punch.
We went on to win the world championship in '77, the first time ever. I had it won at the U.S. Nationals in September. I had it won. Couldn't lose it. And no one ever mentions that,
He must have known that when he signed for my license a lot of years back, Chris.
Did he really?
Yes, he did.
You're responsible for all this, then, huh?
All the NHRA championships that Garlits had won, all the NHRA championships, frosted him that she comes out and wins that championship like that. Probably the best thing that ever happened for drag racing.
Conway's like a loose cannon in those days. He really would do things that really tick me off. It's awfully hard to catch a guy cheating on you when he's got a damn airplane. I was over it. I was ready to move on. It was not a healthy situation for me.
So her makeup was, we're going to do this my way, and I did it before Connie, and I can do it after him.
tremendous risk. But it shows her how determined she was and how confident she was. She knew she could do this.
He chased me for 8 years. He did everything he could to make my life miserable.
Connie did not go away. Connie made no bones about the fact that she wouldn't have been anything if it weren't for me. I mean, I'm the reason why she did that, and now let's see her succeed without me. Well, she did, and that really aggravated him.
With your crew, Cha-Cha, do they mind working for a woman?
Oh, no, for sure. They don't mind, but they catch a lot of raspberries in the pits. The fellas ask them where their miniskirts are and all of this, but, they don't let it get to them. They really don't.
Getting to work for Shirley was tough because of the animosity from a lot of the racers towards her. People wanted to beat her. And if you're going to work for her, and it sounds stupid, but you got to wear a pink shirt. Nobody goes to drag race and wears a pink shirt. They didn't want to be seen like that. They didn't want to be involved with that. And there was a certain amount of peer pressure from the other racers.
No one would work for me. I couldn't get any tuners. There was something beneath working for her.
Now, you say she was hard to work for because she was a female. Shirley was probably hard to work for as an individual just because she's so driven.
She kept that crew on their toes because they didn't want to listen to her down there at the end if she lost.
She wasn't just a driver that doesn't know anything about the car, so she was very well-rounded to be able to take the reins, hold the reins, and run the team herself. Being the boss and having to get in the car and focus with everything else going on, that truly amazes me.
What happened?
Something broke in the drivetrain, twisted something off. We haven't beat like that in a long time.
78 was a terrible year. We couldn't keep from blowing stuff up, and it started to really cost me. Really cost me.
Side by side, Beck bouncing a little bit, but he apparently has it under control. A close race at the finish. Shirley loses in the semifinals.
Plus the aggravation with Connie that went along with the aggravation with the race car.
A great start for Shirley Muldowney.
And then we came out in 1980. Things came together, clicked.
It looks like Shirley Muldowney beat Connie Kalita off the starting line. A puff of smoke out of Shirley's car, but she wins it going away.
I come up alongside of Connie the final round at the Pomona Winter Nationals, and I had a brand new car.
You asked for him earlier, and you got him now. What are you going to do with him?
Put him away.
Off they go, and Kalita gets the jump, but he swivels sideways. And it's Shirley Muldowney wins it!
I won the drag race, and Connie was a perfect gentleman at the end of the track.
I feel that I can drive as good, if I think I can actually drive better than what she can.
He's kidding himself. He learned a lot by working with me.
He is in the far lane. Kalita in the near lane. A yellow light and then a green. And they're away. Kalita lights the tires. And Muldowney now simply driving away from Kalita. She's now one step closer to a world championship.
Nobody wants to see their ex hit the lottery.
Connie, he's running all over the racetrack to competitors that I didn't get along with this gigantic wad of bills, all these ones with a, 20 wrapped around the outside. And, what do you want? You want tires? I'll give you you want a motor? I'll give you a motor.
Connie didn't care what people said about him, what they thought about him. Didn't care if they thought that he talked nicely about Shirley or didn't talk nicely about Shirley. Yeah. So there was that rivalry on a completely different basis.
The world championship is up to Muldowney. Her concentration and her driving. She pulls away. Muldowney is driving away from Cornwall as Cornwall smoked the tires on the line. And Shirley Muldowney is the world champion.
As the day ended, we won the world finals and the championship on top of it. 2 Wallies that day.
The finals of the 28th annual U.S. Nationals. Shirley Muldowney has never won this title before. Her competition, the KG veteran, Connie Kalita.
Even the casual fan at the time knew about the relationship between Connie and Shirley. He did nothing to dampen that down, and she certainly didn't either.
Anytime you and this lady meet, it's a bit of a war. Yes, it is. It's going to be a hell of a good drag race.
And you take great pride in trying to leave on her.
I wouldn't do that. Ladies before gentlemen, isn't it?
That kind of relationship, when you put it onto the racetrack, it's just magnified and amplified. There was so much tension and drama before that final and so much on the line.
No one was going to stop me. You can win every championship in the world, every sanctioning body, any place you want to go. If you haven't won Indy, you haven't done squat. You got to be able to put Indy in that bio. I wasn't going to lose. Oh, no.
A great start for both cars, and Kalita drifts away out of the center of the track, and Shirley Muldowney pulls straight ahead for the win.
They knew deep down, like I knew deep down, that it was going to happen for us. It was unbelievable.
Shirley Muldowney wins her first ever U.S. National Championship.
That is so classic, the student outrunning the teacher.
The final run was the quickest and fastest side-by-side top fuel race in history. I was happy that I won the drag race for multiple reasons, regardless if it had been anyone, but it just happened to be him, and that it made it that much more worthwhile.
Even Connie was very gracious at the end of that race, to where maybe he had made life difficult for her after they were apart for a while. I think Connie finally realized too that, hey, good for her.
He wasn't going to make a fool of himself. He had it coming. I mean, it was my day. Take that, Kalita.
Record crowd, 61,000 so far for the meet. And Shirley lifts up the front wheels, but outraces Campbell at the start. That is an easy one for Shirley.
Garlits, Connie, Shirley, same mindset. I mean, they're all harsh competitors. nobody thought that anybody else was going to come and beat them. They always thought they were the best. That's why that triumvirate had that kind of relationship that they did.
That man, Don Garlits, he's the best there ever has been at Top Fuel Racing, and he's matched against one of the greatest racers of all time, Shirley Muldowney. And this one single run, they're off together, but it is Shirley Muldowney pulling ahead, and Shirley wins the Gator Nationals for the second year in a row.
John Muldowney, if this wasn't the most exciting final round your mom, your team has ever been in.
It was definitely the most exciting for us. We wanted to put the old man away since '75, and we finally got our chance, and he will never forget it.
I wouldn't change anything that happened that year.
Shirley's season in '82, she is, at that time, what Garlits was back in the 60s. And there's nobody that bothered more than Garlits. It just punched her ticket as no matter what happens for the rest of her career after that, she's going to be one of the legendary people in the sport.
I'm sitting here with two Shirley Muldowney's. Starting in the spring of next year, this lovely actress, Bonnie Bedelia, will be Shirley Muldowney, a feature motion picture starring Bonnie playing Shirley.
It was very unusual that a woman would excel in a man's sport. And so they made a movie about it.
At a young age, my sister and I watched Heart Like a Wheel, and because we were females in this sport, she was it. She was the one.
Unbelievable. Who would have ever guessed? It set the stage for great things.
I loved it. I've probably seen it 10 times.
They may have heard the name, but it didn't register until they saw the movie. And then it was, oh my gosh, they could put it all together.
They were having a debut in Hollywood before they raced to the public. And I was talking to her that afternoon. So this is just, a great day in your life. Being the sweet Shirley that she can be, that soft voice. I said, well, I just hope the racers like it. And then cha-cha voice, and if they don't, they can all just go to hell. That was Shirley.
Heart Like a Wheel was wonderful for the sport. And it opened the doors for a lot of racers that came behind me.
I don't think Marvin really is as good a lever. And, the car runs awfully good, so a good car can make a marginal driver look awfully good. I think I have him there.
Shirley's biggest problem with her career was Shirley Muldowney. She had no filter. I mean, she would tell you what she thought. I mean, point blank. I don't think your car can beat me. Don't bring that piece of junk up here. I don't know what Connie's doing. He's a has-been. Garlits hasn't had a competitive car in years. If your wife wasn't a good cook, Shirley'd tell you. Didn't bother her. It was one of her endearing qualities because you always knew where she stood.
There's been a little dialogue, and not at all sometimes nice dialogue, between yourself and a lady named Janet Guthrie, who runs the Indy cars. You tell me what's happening.
I thought the Indy attempt was great for women. She went into the race, as far as I know, with the idea of just finishing. Well, I go into a race to win. That's the name of the game.
Back then, it was so different, so hardcore, down and dirty racing. It was just a different world. Yeah, I didn't have a ton of support from the girls. I didn't, and that was a little bit of a personal thing with me. I wanted their support because I knew the day would come I was going to have them in the other lane.
The new ones that have come along and have not faced any of that adversity have no clue what Shirley went through. I don't think they ever will. They can watch the movies, they can hear the stories, but until they face it themselves, they have no idea, what she had to endure for as long as she endured it and was successful despite all of it.
I was on a downer going into Montreal. We went up to the line for the last qualifying session on Friday. I had an issue coming into the lights at 250, and I saw the tube come out of the left front tire. And I went for the chute, came back to the wheel, and it took the wheel out of my hand. When that wheel went, it snapped my thumb right off. When you see the front end go, the tires like that, it's D-Day. It's over. Oh boy, this is not good. Went off at a 90 and impacted into an embankment. I remember hitting twice and then I was out. that chassis came apart like a broken glass. My guys freaked out. They went down looking to find a race car, and there was nothing left. It broke off at my hip, top of my legs, thighs. And that in the cage, if you will, that's all that was left. I went another 300 feet with my legs out. And I was in serious trouble. The crew, paramedics, everybody was down there and they couldn't find me. I was covered in mud. I'd never known pain like that. It was a terrible ride. Just terrible.
It's a miracle that she survived, and it didn't take her legs off and they bled to death before she ever got to the hospital, you know. It was a really close call.
When we got to the hospital, I wasn't prepared for what I saw.
I didn't even recognize her.
She was quite swollen in her whole face, like from here to here. You could barely make out the features for the swelling.
Yeah, it was like the end of the world for me.
I walked up to the bedside. And there was a piece of her arm that looked like it wasn't hurt. So I just reached over and touched her, and she opened her eyes. And, you know, trying to play to what I know is her vanity, I said, well, all things considered, you don't look so bad. And she looked up at me and she said, well, Cheryl, not doing too bad for a little. That's her. I mean, she had to be in the most ungodly pain.
You cannot believe the flood of calls. People all over the world call.
All this stuff flashed before me about all the nasty things I'd said to her over the years, you know, and all the arguments and stuff. And I thought, that's pathetic, you know. I'm so ashamed of myself. I promised myself I would never talk anything bad about her again, and I would try to be friends with her. It kind of changed her too, I think. And we became really good friends after that.
Good comes out of everything, and that was one of the good things that came out of her accident, is it united the industry in so many different ways. Folks who really weren't that friendly to her or with her at the time became big supporters.
I finally started to, realize just how many friends I had out there. The racers were truly wonderful to me. That's when my whole attitude changed considerably. Not 100%, but I was more willing to listen before I jumped to conclusions. It was a different day. Doctor said, well, she may not walk again. I wasn't hearing that. At Roger Penske's urging, we go down to Indianapolis and see if we can get Dr. Terry Trammell to work on me.
I looked at the films. She said the look on my face stopped her cold, because it was like, what, if he thinks it looks that bad, because I guess my facial expression gave me away. But she said, I turned back to her and said, we've got some work to do. And from then on out, it was just, let's fix it.
He wrote out his whole synopsis as to, what could be done, what should be done, and what could happen as a result of failure. And the last word was amputation.
Her right foot and ankle were just pieces. This stuff had to hurt like crazy. She really never complained about that.
It was a long road. It was a very long road.
So as soon as we got to the point where she could actually bear weight on one side, on the left side, then she was up going with crutches like a house of fire. And that really is okay, if you can do that, you can drive.
The end result was I wound up with a short leg, because that bone is now like this. And it shortened my leg 5/8 of an inch. So I walk pretty much like this. On the other leg, they had to fuse the ankle to save the foot.
The entire industry said she would never race again. She fooled them all. She come back and raced.
I get chill bumps talking about it. The sport gave us a lot, all of us women a lot, but it takes a lot away from you. It disfigured her. She was hurt severely many times, and she still came back.
That is a part of her that I don't understand either, or how she does it, because especially being a mom, there were close calls, but nothing seems to scare her away.
After 19 months of recovering, Shirley Muldowney is back.
The look on her face when they fired the car was just unbelievable. It was like, it's everything that she wanted. You could see it. It was in her eyes. It was in her smile. And she was back.
Here we go.
Nobody left. There wasn't one empty seat. They stayed against Daryl Gwynn. That was my last NHRA win.
Shirley, it's been lonely in the winter circle without you.
Yeah, it has. We did it.
You know, if some guy racing came back from that, okay, that's good, and you know they expect that. But to have her go through fires and then the Sinair accident, and then not only get back in the car, but to win a race, I mean, it was mind-boggling.
I remember a lot of times John would say, "Mom, you're lucky you made it through those years. You know how lucky you are?" Yeah, I am. Very lucky. Whoa. I see familiar faces. That was a good picture. Oh, really? Wow. Huh. I've read this not that long ago I didn't see it till about 2 weeks ago, and he's been gone 5 years. Thank you for this. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. John was the king of one-liners. He was very funny. He was always a great kid. We got along fine. John turned into a wonderful fabricator.
He was as good at what he did as anybody on any of the other teams, and yet he never got that boost in his career.
He needed more friends that he didn't have out there. I think it bothered him a great deal that other crew members on our team didn't side with him, didn't back him. You know, it's like he wasn't part of the buddy system. I think it was mainly because it's Shirley's kid, you know, and he wanted to eventually drive.
Seemed like he always had struggles. John, I always fought for him because, you know, you see a lot of guys who were overshadowed by their dad, they have famous dads. John had this successful, popular mother. That just had to be tough on him because of how could you ever get up to that level?
John ran into trouble with the alcohol, far beyond a point that I was even aware of. Had no idea. No idea. I blew it. I was so involved in what I did. I missed it. When I finally got a wind of it, how bad it was too late.
It was a terrible loss to her, you know, when he died. I don't think he's ever got over that.
I miss him every day. I would give the world for John. I would give me for John. 2003, we had talk of me, you know, putting it to bed, and we knocked him dead with the Last Pass tour, every place we went.
That had to be probably the toughest moment of her entire race career, is making yourself say, okay, it stops here.
This would be something very hard to say goodbye to, because it's your life's work. You've sacrificed a real life and friends and family to go do something that you believe in and that you love. And when it comes to a close, it's definitely something that someone would struggle with. I think she did it with such grace.
It almost could have been called the Last Laugh Tour, because She wound up having the last laugh on everybody. The NHRA people, the Garlets, the Colettas, people were out there and had raised her to such a pedestal because of what she had done and the way that she had done it and the obstacles that she had overcome. It was really pretty cool.
She posted a 327 mile per hour speed during that 6-race run. There were a couple of races there, one in Chicago where she went to the semis, and I mean, people were like, wow, could this really happen? Kind of like when Tom Watson almost won the British Open.
I just remember how cool she is. Like getting in a car at that stage in her life and going out there, all eyes are on you, every TV camera in the place is on you, every fan is watching you, and she went out there and she nailed it. And I can't imagine the emotion associated with that for her.
We went to the World Finals. It was over. And I miss it every day. It went that fast.
Oh, yeah. You used to go and watch you race at Pomona.
Pomona, yes. Yeah.
What she achieved from virtually nothing to when she finally hung up her helmet, she had a tremendous following.
We were so excited to come and see her and just meet her for the very first time and shake hands with her.
I was wondering what made you want to be a racer.
You've got little kids coming up now that most certainly never saw her race.
I've been in the sport since the 50s, well before you were born. Shirley's Kids is a charity. It was founded by a Houston, Texas businessman who is a drag racer.
The concept was we'd build it around children in the racing community, the drag racing community, with some need, medical, financial, and whatever. Shirley embraced it. NHRA embraced it.
I'm lucky he named the foundation after me.
And Shirley Muldowney wins it by about a car length.
I think we can all do our best to fill her shoes, but there will never be another Shirley.
There'll never be another Shirley. She's tough. She had to be, and she's got a lot of bruises and scars.
For the sport's sake, I'm glad it was me. Because I didn't give them even one chance to discount me. I was there and I wasn't going anywhere.
She's not just a woman who drove a race car. She's a race car driver who is a woman. All of the things that the girls are doing now to promote women in motorsports and so on and so forth, Shirley did all that by herself.
You can't compare Shirley to anybody. When my daughters came along, it was easier because Shirley had already been out there and opened the door.
Shirley inspired thousands of young women to get into drag racing, and it brought thousands and thousands of new fans to the track.
The girls, they come up to me and they say wonderful things to me. The semi-pros and the alcohol, and they're just so appreciative that, I got the dirty work done. Well, it just went with the territory. That was there. I had no choice, either hang in there and, fight back or lose.
I regret not sitting with her and talking to her more. There's a lot more you can find out from her than anybody else at the racetrack. And you get her out of the race scene and you break down that heart out of shell and you find out who Shirley Muldowney is. I want her on my side, I can tell you that.
She had that personality that could take them on, and that's what made her a star. We loved it.
Shirley Muldowney, in my humble opinion, is the greatest woman race car driver that ever lived and maybe ever will live. I'm talking about all kinds of auto racing, not just drag racing. They got big shoes to fill to say that I am better than Shirley Muldowney.
John reminded me I was the only female sports figure to compete solely against men in any form of anything and bring home a championship. Think about this, Ma. Think about this. I said, really, that's really something. I'll stand on that.
If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to catch all upcoming videos. Share and comment. Thank you for watching.